Hi, so this is my 6-week pregnancy story. I'm 6 weeks postpartum as of yesterday and have been exclusively breastfeeding right from the start. My son was born naturally. Didn't have time for an epidural. It was a super quick birth, an hour 40 from the first contraction. So that was lucky and unlucky, I guess. Anyway, so within the first hour he breastfed and he latched amazingly, and the midwife herself even said that he's a great feeder and that I'm super duper lucky. So I was so stoked because I had heard so many horrific breastfeeding stories and how it was just so painful and unpleasant, and I just thought I'd hit the jackpot really. So yeah, he latched great. That first night he woke up twice to feed, and it was fine. By the second day my nipples were getting quite sore, quite red. My left one had cracked at that stage and it was getting a bit painful, but I was assured that this was normal, and I'd heard that it was normal and I was expecting it, so that was fine. I was given some lanolin to put on my nipples, which helped, and that was great. And everything was fine. It was no problem at all. And my milk came in on the third night and I was just so stoked. I was happy, it was emotional, I was just really, yeah, I don't know, it was just an awesome thing for me because I knew that I was doing the right thing by my son, and I was just glad that my body would, could, and that it was doing exactly what it was meant to, and it was just a really exciting time. So I was discharged on my 4th day, so I stayed 3 nights in hospital, and by then my breasts were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as my milk came in, and my nipples were getting sorer, and I was getting more and more miserable. But I kept telling myself, this is normal, I'll get through it. It's it's not meant to be a walk in the park. And yeah, by the 2nd day that I was out of hospital, I was just flat on my back. I was so upset. I screamed and was bawling my eyes out every time that he latched, and it was just the most horrific thing. It was probably more painful than the birth itself. My breasts were just like rocks. They were literally hard to touch. It was like touching a hard surface. They weren't soft at all. They were red, and I was feeling fluey, and I knew that this was mastitis. I knew it. The midwife came round that day and she took one look at me and she's like, you need to go into the hospital. So that's what I did. That night I was admitted to hospital again, and with bilateral mastitis. They gave me 3 days worth of IV antibiotics, and then I was put on oral antibiotics for a week after that. When I was in the hospital, I exclusively pumped and fed him the expressed milk. I didn't latch him at all. My nipples were just destroyed really. The problem was that, other than the fact that I was so engorged and had mastitis, Eli he had something wrong with his jaw, and he wasn't opening his mouth wide enough when he latched on, and it was quite hard to tell, because initially, everyone said that he had a great latch and whatever, but anyway, so that was the problem. So I exclusively pumped for all 4 days that I was in hospital, apart from the last day when the lactation consultant helped me latch him on. When I was first in hospital and was feeding him, my nipples got so bad that they gave me nipple shields to use, and I was using those. Even when I went home I was using those, but they just, it wasn't helping either. to an extent it helped with the pain, and it definitely helped him latch on, because he wasn't opening his mouth wide enough. It definitely helped him latch on, and he wouldn't fuss so much at the breast. He would just go straight on, and that was great. But it was still painful, like that. Yeah, it was still painful. So anyway, so on the last day that I was in hospital, the lactation consultant, finally we got a good latch. He learned how to latch, but I had completely lost all confidence. When I got home, I was pumping just with my manual pump, which is awesome. I have an Avent, just the manual pump, which I could completely strip my breasts with, empty them out, no issues whatsoever, which is fantastic. I mean, I think it works just as good as the, you know, flash, I don't know what they're called, but those big Medela pumps that they have in the hospital. I thought that it did just as good a job, just as fast. The only difference is that I couldn't do both breasts at the same time. So for the first week or so out of hospital, we fed him just using my express milk out of the bottle, and then, you know, gradually I built up, putting him to the breast maybe every second feed, just because I'd lost confidence, and my nipples had finally healed, and I didn't want to destroy them again. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to get mastitis again. Yeah, but probably by about week 3 I was just putting him to the breast finally, but I was using the nipple shields, which was helpful just because of his jaw issue thing. The lactation consultant suggested that I go see an osteopath about it, and because it was such a fast birth, it can be quite traumatic on the baby, just because it's supposed to be like a slow, you know, drawn out, well, not drawn out, but a slower process, so that he can move down the birth canal a little bit slower. But because it was so quick, it can be quite hard on the baby. So I did go, and the osteopath did point out the jaw problem, and I went for 3 sessions where they worked on it, and it helped just tremendously. I mean, now I'm 6 weeks, but he's not used, well, we use the nipple shield at night if he's really fussy and I'm just too tired and just want to get him on. But during the day we don't use it. He just latches on both sides perfectly fine. And I can remember when I was going through that hard time initially with breastfeeding, and people would tell me, you know, by the time you hit 6 weeks you'll be away and you'll have it sorted, and it'll be so worth all this pain and suffering that you're going through now, you know. And I can remember thinking back then, there's 6 weeks just felt like so far away, and I just felt like I would never be able to breastfeed him comfortably and easily. But now that I'm here, I can definitely say that, you know, we've got it down. He's finally latching, you know, it doesn't hurt, it's not hard, and I'm just so glad that we kept at it, because I could have easily given up, and I totally understand why people do, because it is not an easy thing. It can be extremely painful, and you know, when you're in that situation and you're completely resenting your baby and you don't want anything to do with it because you're just dreading the next time that he has to feed, you know, you have to weigh whether or not it's worth it, you know, and for some people it's not, and I totally understand that. But I'm just so stoked that, you know, I had awesome support by all the midwives in the hospital, by my own midwife at home, and the fact that we have a breastfeeding clinic that we can go to, you know, just walk in, and there's a lactation consultant there to help us. So be encouraged if you're breastfeeding and it's hard at the moment. I know that everybody says it, but it does get better, and it's so worth it. So that's my story. See you later.